I hadn't taken my jacket off because I wasn't sure how long I planned to stay. That was the honest reason, though I told myself it was because the house ran cold in winter, or because I just come from the car and didn't want to fuss with it. But standing there in the doorway, the familiar smell of food and furniture Polish, I already felt like a guest who might be asked what time they were leaving. Didn't know they let dropouts in here, my dad said. It wasn't loud. He didn't raise his voice or look at me directly. It was the kind of remark he'd perfected over decades, tossed into the room like an observation, as if it had nothing to do with me personally. A few relatives laughed. Not everyone. Some people smiled the way you do when you don't want to be noticed not laughing. I nodded, because nodding had always been the safest response. Correcting him would have meant explaining, and explaining in that house was a form of begging. I closed the door behind me and took the seat at the back of the room, near the end of the couch where conversations went to die. From there, I could see everyone without being part of anything. Plates passed. Someone argued about parking. My aunt complained about the price of groceries. It all sounded the same as it had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, back when I still thought proximity would eventually turn into belonging. I kept my hands folded, felt the weight of the jacket settle around my shoulders. I'd learned a long time ago that if you made yourself small enough, people stopped expecting reactions. Silence was easier than disappointment. The thing about being labeled early, dropout, disappointment, wasted potential, is that people stop updating their image of you. They don't do it maliciously, not always. They just freeze you at the age when they decided who you were, and every year after that becomes irrelevant. When I left school, no one asked why. They just nodded the way they'd nodded tonight, like it confirmed something they'd suspected. I didn't correct them then either. I went to work. Then I went to more work. Then I went home tired and didn't talk about it. At some point, without ceremony, the work turned into something else. I didn't announce that either. My sister's husband, Mark, sat across the room, balancing a plate on his knee. He'd always been polite to me in a distant way, like you are with someone you don't expect to see often. He worked in finance, wore the uniform well. Crisp shirt, confident posture, a voice that assumed agreement. After a lull in conversation, he glanced over and asked, "So, what are you doing these days?" It wasn't a trap. That was almost the funny part. It was an honest question, the kind people ask when they want to categorize you so they know how much attention to give next. "I work at Northline," I said. I didn't add my title. I didn't say how long I'd been there. I didn't say anything about what Northline did. I just named the company and waited. Mark's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Northline," he said. "A's in Northline Systems." "Yes." He frowned slightly, eyes narrowing, not suspicious, just recalculating. He looked at me again, the way you look when you think you've missed a detail the first time. The jacket. The seat at the back. The fact that I hadn't spoken all evening. "Oh," he said. "Wait." The room didn't notice yet. Conversations were still overlapping, laughter rising and falling. But something in his tone shifted. He set his plate down. "You're not consulting for them, are you?" he asked. "No." Another pause. Longer this time. "Then what do you do there?" "I run it." The words landed without force. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look around to see who was listening. I said it the same way I would have said I worked late or that traffic was bad. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. He blinked once. "You're my CEO," he said louder than he meant to. That was the moment the room went quiet, not all at once, but in pieces. Someone stopped mid-sentence. A laugh cut off too sharply. Chairs shifted. Silence moved outward like a ripple until it reached even the people in the kitchen. I felt it before I saw it, the weight of attention settling where it had never settled before. Mark stood up, suddenly awkward, suddenly aware of his posture. I didn't realize," he said, looking at me with something like disbelief layered over embarrassment. "I mean, I've seen you in meetings, obviously, but It's fine," I said. And it was in the sense that I didn't feel the need to rescue him. The truth didn't require my defense. My dad cleared his throat. He looked at Mark, then at me as if comparing two incompatible stories. You're saying you own the company. I don't own it, I said. I run it. That distinction mattered to me, even if no one else caught it. Someone offered me a drink. Someone else suggested I move to a better seat, closer to the table. My aunt asked what exactly Northline did. The questions came quickly, overlapping, eager in a way that felt almost physical. I stayed where I was. There was no rush of triumph, no sense of revenge. What I felt instead was a strange, hollow quiet. The power in the room had shifted, undeniably, but it hadn't brought relief. Just clarity. I watched my father absorb it. He didn't apologize. He didn't laugh it off. He just nodded slowly, as if filing the information away for later use. I realized then that this moment wouldn't rewrite our history. It would only change the present. Mark hovered near me for a few minutes, trying to recover his footing. He mentioned a project I'd approved, a decision I'd made months ago. He was careful now. Respectful. The contrast is almost painful. At some point, my sister caught my eye from across the room. Her expression wasn't pride or embarrassment. It was something closer to surprise, mixed with the realization that she hadn't really known me in a long time. That might have been the hardest part. I left earlier than planned. No one stopped me. No one asked why. As I put my jacket back on, still unnecessary, still heavy, I felt lighter than I had walking in. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I sat in my car for a moment before starting it, letting the silence settle. I hadn't come there to prove anything. I hadn't planned the reveal. It had happened because someone else recognized authority where they hadn't expected it, and named it out loud. I understood then that leverage didn't need to be used to exist. That dignity could be reclaimed without an argument, without a speech, without anyone losing face. As I drove away, I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished with something. And for the first time, that felt like enough.